Mara Liasson, national political correspondent of National Public Radio, and her colleague, Juan Williams, senior correspondent of National Public Radio, all are Fox News contributors. So what is the likelihood, at the rate this is going, Fred, you follow this issue carefully, does the size of the reaction to it, negative reaction to it, did it surprise you?
It did surprise me, actually. I didn't think conservatives, from National Review to people who just don't like immigrants, it would be as strong as it is. On the other hand, there's very broad-based support for this measure in the Senate, and I think when some changes are made to it, there'll be even more. There obviously have to be some made. There are complaints about the worker program. There are complaints about that there aren't benchmarks.
You're talking about the so-called Z visa part of it?
Well, there are complaints about the Z visa.
The Z visa, by the way, would be available to people who are here illegally now and who could sort of overnight become legal.
No, they can't overnight. Then they will get a probationary period leading in about a year and a half.
But they'd be legal during that probationary period.
Yeah, they'd be legal during that period, but they would have to, one, they'd have to step forward. They'd have a preliminary background check, I believe. And they would get a card, which would allow them to continue working. And then the Z visa comes a year later. Then they get a full background check. They have to pay a fine. They have to do all kinds of things. It's not what I would call amnesty, but it is.
But that is the provision that has given rise to the cause of amnesty.
Well, that is what people point to when they say amnesty. Now the question is there anything short of deportation that would satisfy people who consider this particular set of obstacles amnesty? And I think for many of them there isn't anything. I do think one of the things that could be fixed in the bill, which might bring in some more support, is if it allowed for an easier process in the guest worker program, more legal immigration, more immigration for employers, because employers are key to this, and they were part of the original coalition, and a lot of them are nervous about what's in here now.
Well, I think that, the whole question is how can the center hold? And from when I saw it today, it looks to me like there's a lot of posturing going on. I understand it politically. You got to play to the right, you got to play to the left. I think that's what we saw when you just saw that bite from Harry Reid. Harry Reid's a guy who says, listen, they got 10 to 12 million so-called illegal immigrants living in this country, and ask a basic question. What are you going to do with them? As Mara says, are you going to kick them out? Are you personally going to go take them out? And the idea is, of course, that you have some reasonable compromise here, and the thought was to push it quickly. Now they're going to wait until after Memorial Day
to really debate it.
To debate it. But the problem is, I think, you hear things like this Robert Rector suggestion, it's going to raise taxes because these people are not high school. These people are picking apples. These people are in states with lots of farms and the like and tending to people's lawns. Exactly how is that going to drive down the American economy? The American economy relies on so much of this low-skilled labor. In fact, I think the criticism that comes from Harry Reid and others, which is to say, are we creating a subclass of workers by saying you can only stay 2 years, no path to citizenship whatsoever, is a big
What do you think is the likely fate of this bill?
I happen to think, and I remain very optimistic about this, I think the Senate will hold because there are enough big players. Dick Durbin, who's number 2 in the Senate on the Democratic side, says he's opposed, he's got these concerns. But ultimately, do you really believe Dick Durbin's not going to side with Ted Kennedy? And I believe the same is true of Harry Reid.
Yeah, you're right about Kennedy, you're right about Harry Reid, you're right about many of the Democrats, because if Teddy Kennedy's there, they're going to be there. It means the Hispanic groups will be there, among others, and other ethnic groups for whom Senator Kennedy has been their greatest ally in the Senate for a generation or more, so they'll be there. You have a broad base of support here. It goes to people like Johnny Isakson and Saxby Chambliss, conservative senators from Georgia, to the most important Republican in this was John Kyle of Arizona. Now, these were people who opposed the McCain-Kennedy bill last year, and now, and I think, based on what Republicans complained about last year and the year before,
but these guys are going to
better on almost every count.
But all these critics, David Vitter and others, they're going to need something to allow them to say, okay, the bill's been sweetened to my satisfaction. What was that likely to be?
We've already heard what they say, no matter what the bill, unless we go and take 12 million people and get the moving vans and get the troop carriers and take them back to Mexico or to Ireland or wherever they were from, unless we do that, any bill that doesn't do that, they will call an amnesty bill, no matter how big the fines,
so those people
no matter how big the
what you're saying is it's going to have to be passed without the votes of people like that.
Exactly.
I think that's right. I think the big question is what happens in the House where the Democratic leadership is requiring 65 or 70 Republican votes, And that is where you always, don't forget the Senate passed something. They passed something more liberal than this when there wasn't a Democratic Congress.
Yeah.
So I don't think the Senate is the problem. I think that what's going to happen in the House, where you have a lot of Republicans that are even more against this than in the Senate, and also you have a lot of nervous Democrats. Democrats have to decide, is this a good thing for them to do right now?
And is it good for, even the hardliners on the Republican side? You look back at the '06 election, people who took the hard line against immigration did not fare well. One last thought on this is, I think business has not been heard from. I'm just curious as to when business kicks in and says, hey, we have an at stake here. We value these workers. We're willing to take the necessary precautions, and we're on the side of this. And I think their presence in terms of support for Republican candidates
In the
has been
end,
absent.
pass or not pass?
Well, it's, who has a crystal ball? I'd say pass.
Pass the Senate.
Maybe House?
Unclear.
Remember what happened last
Fred?
year? The Republicans who control the House would not even take their bill into a conference with the Senate. And this time, Democrats control the House. There will be a bill passed there. It will have momentum coming out of the Senate. And I think we have a pretty good chance of getting a final act of legislation.